Recently on this channel, we've talked about building a studio environment as a sanctuary for creative process. And we've discussed strategies for harnessing your natural neurobiology to create a flow state. That is the why and the what. So now I want to talk about, what do we do? How do we begin when we're facing the blank page or the unpatched synthesizer or an empty DAW project? How do we get started? I'm going to suggest something maybe a little counterintuitive. I'm going to suggest that we start by building ourselves a cage of freedom. I think there is kind of a lie being propagated out there that art is born of infinite possibility, that you pluck genius from the void. My lifetime spent as a conservatory student, as a university professor, and as a professional musician tells me this is just not true. Creativity comes because you show up every day and you do the work and you create self-imposed, appropriate, and carefully crafted limitations. My teachers were architects of constraint, not infinite possibilities. In fact, when you study music theory, you study music analysis, you look into the works that have shaped generations of musicians, what's revealed is a world of constraints. One of the most important pieces of music in the Western canon is J.S. Bach's Goldberg Variations, which is an hour-long journey based on a simple descending bass line, a passacaglia. And on top of it, using different sets of constraints, Bach invents musical worlds out of that. If you don't know the Goldberg Variations, please pause this video and go listen now. I'll see you in a few days. There's an old joke that if you want to see a composer rise to their greatest power, you don't give them an 80-piece symphony orchestra. You hand them 2 sticks or 2 rocks, and you tell them to go in the corner and entertain some people, because they will invent out of those limited materials. Something special will happen when they do that. This is why when you start studying composition, you begin with simple solo instruments, and you begin with a single artistic vision. And as you are creating, as your process unfolds, you ask yourself, is what I'm doing, are the choices I'm making, serving that artistic vision? I had a teacher in high school who was getting his doctorate at the time, and he was a religious man, so he used to say things like, all things are possible, but not all things are expedient, which I think is the paraphrase of a biblical thing, I don't know. But the point was well taken. Musical form is not a restrictive container. It's a musical logic that's necessary for clarity and comprehension. One of my most important mentors was George Rochberg, who was born in 1918, over 100 years ago. He fought in the Second World War, and he came to prominence in the 1940s and 50s as a post-war serial composer. Okay, and if you know anything about serialism, you know that's a very rigid, strict set of constraints, which naturally create that cage and allow for creativity to blossom from within. But in the 1960s, George threw all of that away. He turned his back on the establishment, and he created a postmodern pastiche style, an approach that we're all pretty familiar with today. Incidentally, he did do this before Luciano Berio. But on the surface, it may sound like this pastiche style is limitless possibility. Anything can happen in any moment. And that is not true. George traded his serial cage for a different set of self-imposed restrictions that were based on repurposing and reimagining historical music in a modern context. Which brings up an important point. Creative limitations can be conceptual or they can be material-based. If you're not sure where to start, try working with a single monosynth. And I don't mean build your standard track all with one synth. I mean build a simple work on a simple synth. Maybe try getting out of the DAW and limiting yourself to a simple hardware sequencer. Or just start with a simple set of rhythms. Be the composer in the corner with the 2 sticks. However you start, choose your constraints and stay loyal to them. You will fail. If you've not done this before, you will fail as you go, and that's okay. When you found out that you've chosen the wrong constraints, abandon it. It's all right. You'll probably end up with some cool samples or some other cool ideas. You'll learn stuff along the way. But as you do this, you'll discover for yourself what those constraints can be. Whatever you do, avoid the infinite doom scroll of those presets. Whether it's a hardware synth or a VST, and you find yourself scrolling those presets looking for inspiration or thinking you're going to just stumble across the right sound, start this video over, try again. So I hope these messages are useful or inspiring. Like and subscribe for more. Find your constraint, build your creative cage, and listen to the voice that emerges. And until next time, as always, be well.